Sills! Dude, wow. Unbelievable news. Unbelievable news. And let me start the show off by doing this. Let's all gather around here. Ready? Let's all gather around here. And if you're Lamar Jackson, you're doing this. Dear God, thank you very much for Jalen Hurts. Thank you for Jalen getting his deal done, putting the parameters out there, and showing me the light. Thank you very much. In Heavenly Dollar's name, amen, Lamar Jackson. Dude, hey, I guess that guy ain't so stupid after all, huh? What is it? 80 million? First year, 112, second year, 156, 208, and 4. I guess he ain't that dumb after all. I guess this guy's not a dumbass after all, is he? Guy represented himself. No tag and no trade. Kudos to Lamar Jackson. By the way, Jalen Hurts is the Pied Piper to this. He's totally the Pied Piper. Everyone now is going to fall in suit. And quite frankly, I'll tell you one thing else he's done. Jalen Hurts has also done this for all these quarterbacks whose contracts are up. He showed you how to do it right. No noise. Don't kick your heels up. Don't be a nuisance. Because you know why? The money's so great. Don't make yourself look like Aaron Rodgers and make yourself feel like you're better than everybody else on your roster. That's what Jalen did. Jalen set a tone around his $51 million. Gotta say, man, it's one of the greatest and most professionally negotiated contracts for that kind of money I've ever seen. That all goes back to Hurts, his agent, and Howie, and the owner, of course. The four folks did this right. You're already hearing Tom Telesco. Yeah, we're working on something. No, you're not. It's the Spanos family. How could you be working on anything? You got Mike Brown and the Bengals. What do you think they're working on? Trying to figure out ways on how they can hijack Joe Burrow. Jalen Hurts got to deal. Dude, Jalen's in the best org. I got to say, I'm trying to figure, is there a better organization right now to play for? Is there a better organization right now to play for than the Eagles? Where would you want to play? Hey, let's take the Eagles out of the equation. What organization in the NFL, not counting the Eagles, where you would want to play? Where? Pittsburgh? Kansas City. Kansas City, fly. Pittsburgh, Kansas City. Where else? Buffalo? Buffalo? Buffalo paid Allen. Where else would you want to? Don't use the Eagles. Jacksonville? I think you got to have a little more time there with Doug. I think Doug needs a little more time to build that thing up. So a couple guys here. Seattle, John Schneider, Pete Carroll. But how long is Pete going to be there? What's that going to look like when Carroll's not there either? Who's going to take over for Pete Carroll in Seattle? 71 years old. That's not going on much longer. Okay? That's not going on much longer. Where else, man? Atlanta? Fan base is great. Fan base is great. Arthur Blank, the owner's great. Atlanta? How about David Tepper in Carolina? Maybe David Tepper? Right? Yeah, Arthur Blank's a great owner. New Orleans? My point is this. The Eagles have to be the best place right now if you're an NFL player to want to go to work. That's crazy cool. They're in Kansas City. Kansas City and Philadelphia are the two best places to play in the NFL. Buffalo and Pittsburgh are probably a close second, third, or third and fourth. Probably somewhere like that. Miami, I do not want to play for Stephen Ross. That guy has not a chance. I do not want to play. Chris Greer's a good GM, but I don't like the owner, Stephen Ross. Too Harry-Carry in how he does business. Jalen Hurts has the best of everything. He's got a great GM. He's got a great owner. He's got a great fan base. He's got a great roster. And he's got a great opportunity to get his team back to a Super Bowl again. I'll tell you one thing I will give the Eagles credit for, too. Unlike what the Rams had to go through. You know what they did? They doesn't it seem that Philadelphia stepped on the gas pedal? Who said this? Somebody said this. The Eagles have not lost momentum since the Super Bowl. How many times do you see organizations lose momentum as they get closer to the, free agency, the draft, and when they come off of especially a Super Bowl loss, even a win, you kind of lose momentum. The Eagles have kept momentum going. They've stayed on the gas pedal. Actually, I actually think they've stepped on the gas pedal more. Some of you hold my feet to the fire, and you should. And you should. Sills, you said on March 13th this team had no chance to make the playoffs. I did. As of March 13th? Well, as of May 4th. From March 13th to May 4th, I don't know how many days that is. Somebody help me out. Big Sills didn't go to Miami as a mathematician. But since March 13th to May 4th, they flipped the script. They have flipped the script. They have flipped it. It's unbelievable. Drafting, A. Free agency, A. 50 days. Howie Roseman has done all of this, Kyle, in 50 days? Jalen's contract done. Getting Kelsey back. Getting your corners back. Getting a star running back. Drafting the best player in the draft by some, including yours truly. Getting a sleeper star in Nolan Smith. Dre, thank you. Dre, I'm loving your show. The Howie Show. Dude, I'm trying to think of a general manager that has done this kind of retooling. It's not rebuilding. This is retooling. I'm trying to think of a GM over the last couple years that has retooled like this. New England. But see, it's easy to retool when you have Brady. Yeah, that's right. Latin Inferno, you still got June 1 yet, where players are going to be salary casualty cap guys. Absolutely. There's another part of the calendar that's still yet to come. Wow. Man. By the way, we're going to switch it up today. Hour number 3, one of the top 20 players in the history of the NBA. We're going to talk Embiid, and we're also going to talk NBA playoffs. I'm actually looking forward to watching the Lakers and the Golden State Warriors tonight. I am. They have me appointment setting. Rick Barry's going to join us, and we'll get his thoughts on Embiid winning the NBA's most valuable player from a guy who won the NBA's most valuable player award. Remember something. Barry's an MVP, finals MVP, champion, ABA and NBA. One of the greatest analysts of all time because he tells you the way it is, not the way you want to hear it. We'll get his thoughts. how important Embiid is to the 76ers. I know they got killed last night. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but Rick Barry will join us in hour number 3. That'll be at 5:30 Eastern. General goes, and you crapped on us for 3 years. Why so long? Because I didn't believe the way you rip a team apart, the way Howie Roseman rips teams apart every year, and the way you threw a football game, General, and the way you sabotaged Doug Peterson was professional and was the way to go and how you want to get to where you want to go. That's why. That's why so long. The Eagles had to build trust up with me in what they were doing. And I'll say this to you too, General. The owner chose right. The owner chose right. Doug's a great coach. I love Doug Peterson. The general manager's better. The GM's better than Doug. He's better than Doug. He's more important than Doug. And Doug's a hell of a coach. Doug's one of my top 5 coaches in the NFL. I'd love and I would want to play for him. But Howie's more important than Doug Peterson. Okay? Cap. Veteran free agency. Trades. The way he did the contract with Jalen. 50 days. He completely gave the team a facelift. And it looks great. It almost looks better than it did a year ago. It's just not as experienced. You're more athletic, but you have less experience. That's why. Yes. Throwing the game at the final game of the year to see Nate Sudfeld is not a way for me to sit here and tell you that I think your general manager is a good GM and sabotaging Doug Peterson. But since that game, yes, he's changed my opinion on him. So is that fair enough? You asked, I told you. Okay? And like I've told you before about opinions, I don't change my opinion. The players change their performance. Or the coach or GM. My opinion changes with your success or failure. Like when Mike Missinelli asked me, so have you flip-flopped on Jalen Hurts? I went to Mike Missinelli. Did you flip-flop on Carson Wentz? He goes, I guess I did. Mike didn't flip-flop. Carson Wentz just got worse. That's not flip-flopping. That's reality. Again, having an opinion doesn't mean you have to be a fortune teller. Because if I was a fortune teller, I would pick Powerball numbers instead of talking to you every day. That's not what I am. Okay? Nate Sudfeld. That guy will go down as one of the great Eagles of all time. Ended up getting Doug Peterson fired. Nate Sudfeld. Hey, we got to take a look at Nate. Really? You don't know who Nate Sudfeld is. I honestly think that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown duo will outdo Kobe and Shaq duo in terms of impact. Well, that's a pretty big statement, my friend. Little Peter, you got to actually put those Larry O'Brien and Lombardi trophies, okay? You got to put them on the shelves before you can start barking about Kobe and Shaq. Okay? Kobe and Shaq, you're talking about two of the greatest dynamic duos in the history of the NBA. Okay? Kobe and Shaq, I don't know. Okay? I mean, it's like Jordan and Pippen. Before you can start comparing yourselves to those dudes, you got to start putting some hardware on the shelf. Okay? All right. Hey, by the way, we got a ton of stuff. We're going to look at all the divisions in the NFL today. And Big Sills, after the free agency and NFL draft, I'm going to tell you where I think they sit here on May 4th as we get ready for rookie camps and training camps, OTAs. We're going to do a little bit of that here in a second. Also, brand new top 10 NFL quarterback list. Now that Rodgers has been traded, I got this list, all QBs. We're going to do that also. But let's start here. Here's a topic, and I first want to start with you guys. How do you use Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith at the same time? How do you put these two guys and how do you utilize them? Because I think these two guys are going to be your most impactful players this coming season. I think even more so, Nolan Smith, if put in the right position with Reddick on the other side, could potentially be the best rush end duos in the NFL. If the Eagles do this right, what's the plan on how to use both of these guys? How do you use Reddick and Nolan Smith? This is the challenge I think that Sean Desai has on how to put these guys in a position to succeed. How would you use them? Do you want them on the same field at the same time? Yes. The more I have to game plan, and the more I have to strategize, the more people I have to care about, the more I think you're going to get more out of that Nolan Smith pick. Don't be shocked. And by the way, you know what I love about him? I told you this the other day, listening to him at the press conference. He's an impressive kid. I want to get Nolan Smith on the field. That's right, little Peter. 2 missiles. Can you imagine? So you come to the line of scrimmage and you're Dak Prescott. Okay? You're Dak. First thing you're looking at is your impact guys. Jalen Carter, Fletcher, and your 2 missiles. Let's just dub them the 2 missiles. And you got 2 corners back there that are an elite duo. Whatever you think of Darius Slay, you got to think of those 2 guys together. Bradbury and Slay. You got to think of those guys together. So look at the pairs that you have. You arguably have the best duo corners in the NFL. You got 2 missiles that potentially could be impactful game changers, and your tackles in the middle. How do you use them? What's the best formula? Is it putting them on the field at the same time? Do you move them around a lot? I do. Can I tell you that I think this is one of the reasons that Matt Patricia has been hired, is to figure this out. What was Matt Patricia known for when he was in New England besides the pencil in the ear? You know what he was known for? Multiple disguise defenses and players moving around all over the place. Remember Bruschi and Vrabel and all those type of players were interchangeable pieces. They weren't the best and most elite guys they had in the league. But you know what they had? You could put them in a 34. You could put them in a 43. You can move them around. You could rush from inside. You can rush from outside. Shit, they did a lot of stuff with Hightower. They did a ton of shit with that guy. I think what you do, I think you move Nolan Smith and Hassan Reddick around all game long. Make that quarterback have to think where he is. You become the offensive side of the ball with a guy like Nolan Smith. You could, in theory, if this guy is who everyone thinks he is. You see, I'm going to give you another comparison when it comes to Nolan Smith. I think you guys will understand this. You guys remember Kevin Green? God rest his soul. Do you remember Kevin Green? Love Kevin Green. One of my dearest friends. You guys remember Kevin Green? Pass rusher, Steelers, Rams. I think Carolina too. They didn't know what to do with him. He was what they used to call back in the day a tweener. He's kind of between a linebacker and he's between a defensive end. You just didn't know what to do with him. That's kind of where Nolan Smith is. Are you going to really line that guy up in a 43 end position, putting his hand in the dirt? No. You're not going to do that. So you move him around. And like I said yesterday to you, I think the best situation for both Hassan Reddick and for Nolan Smith is to rush out of a 43. That's where you're going to get maximum pressure is out of the 43. And what I say, and the reason I say, is because you have Graham, who knows the game, and you have Sweat, who knows how to set the edge. Those guys are going to be great professionals at setting your edge. And then with Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith, you got two human missiles. And when you're an offensive coordinator, you've got to account for them. That means this. Do I leave a back in? Do I leave my tight end in? You got one less pass catcher in the offensive play because of having dual missiles. That's how I use them. And that's how I would use Nolan Smith and Hassan. For me, do we agree? The Eagles are going to be a better football team by having both those guys on the field together. Steve-O says, put Reddick on the weak side, Smith on the strong side so he can cover. Correct, Steve-O. That's how I would do it too. 4-3-9, I'm taking advantage of that, like we said yesterday. But you know what I'm doing? I'm sliding these guys all up and down the line of scrimmage. Now, get this. That means your tackles in your front four have to show up this year. And they have to be impactful. Maybe not so much in sacks, but they got to be impactful in stopping the run. Okay? Atlanta, Philadelphia Eagles, excuse me. Hey, Sills, do you think UDAFA Eli Ricks will make the 53-man roster? Maybe practice squad, dude. Okay? Hey, look, man, there's going to be a lot of UDFAs that are going to – the league – do you know half the league is undrafted? Half the league is undrafted. So those guys are important to have on your football team. I agree, Sills, dual missiles. I want both guys on the field. If I'm sure, let me throw this at you. I thought John McMullen said something very interesting yesterday. And why haven't they announced Sean Desai as the new D coordinator? How come they haven't announced that officially? He hasn't been officially announced as the DC. Hey, Tone, will you do me a favor? Or anybody, look on the Eagle website and see how they have listed Sean Desai on the official Eagle website. I'm curious how they have him listed. If he is listed as the defensive coordinator, or if there's going to be a massive and a heavy influence by Matt Patricia now that he's been brought in. Patricia might be the D coordinator. Nothing's official yet. I'm wondering if the organization is looking at this now and maybe going like this. Patricia's going to have more of an influence. Sean Desai is listed as D coordinator. Interesting. He hasn't been announced officially or introduced to the media or had any kind of press conference. Anything. Why? Find that odd? I do. Most of the time when you make a hire, you want to get that out. Get this, Patricia's not on the website at all, and he's been officially hired. What is that? So Matt Patricia's been hired, but not on the Eagle website. Sean Desai is the defensive coordinator, but hasn't been introduced yet. Okay. They have a way of doing business. It's just odd. It's just odd. So Matt Patricia has been hired as a coach, but he's not on the Eagle website. Okay. I'm not sure I've ever seen that. Dual missiles. I love it. It was supposed to be Fangio, but the tampering effed it up. Desai was a gap fill. Then they got Patricia. How many people think Matt Patricia is going to be the real D coordinator of this thing? And the Eagles went out and got themselves. Hey, by the way, Matt Patricia was a train wreck as a head coach. But Matt Patricia, as a D coordinator, I'm really good with that. Do you think the Eagles are deciding whether or not Matt Patricia is going to have more say in what the scheme's going to look like? Do you think they're going to have co-D coordinators? I think Matt Patricia is going to have more say in this thing. Tyler goes, please no. Tyler doesn't want a guy with 3 Super Bowl rings and had multiple looks on defense in New England. There was no Tom Brady in New England on defense. Tyler doesn't want a guy with 3 Super Bowl rings, 2 of them as a D coordinator. He'd rather have a Sean Desai over a guy with 2 rings. Interesting. It's a way to look at things. As a matter of fact, let me take a look at that with Matt Patricia just to be sure on that. Matt Patricia, because I want to make sure because Tyler might be onto something here. Now his title is senior assistant. Huh. So he was the linebacker coach in 2004. He was the linebacker coach again in 2006 to 10. Safeties coach in 2011. Senior advisor to the Patriots in 2021. Coach in 22. Now he's being listed as a senior defensive assistant with the Philadelphia Eagles. And yet it's not on the website, the official Eagle website. And he's a 3-time Super Bowl champion D coordinator. Tyler doesn't want that. He wants Sean Desai. Not that I think Sean Desai is not coming in with a lot of great accolades and reputation. He is. A lot of people like him. Pete Carroll says a lot about him. Sorry, Tyler, I want the guy with more experience in Super Bowl rings. Let me ask you this, Tyler, and anyone. Do you think if Matt Patricia was the D coordinator in the Super Bowl against the Kansas City Chiefs, you think that might have mattered in the second half? Having played against Andy Reid and schemed against Andy Reid in AFC championship games, you think that could have mattered? Or in Super Bowls? Remember something. He was on the defensive staff when they beat the Kansas City Chiefs. You think that might have helped? Don't you see it? Matt Patricia is basically hired to beat Mahomes. He's been hired to beat Mahomes, Allen, Burrow. Why? Because he faced them. And he's not on the Eagle website, but he's the senior executive or senior assistant, defensive assistant to Nick Sirianni. So wait a minute. Who has more say? The senior executive, the senior assistant to Nick, or the D coordinator? Who's got more say? Interesting, man. Interesting dynamic they got going there. Holy cow. A little bit different here. We're going to look at the divisions here in a second. We got another topic we're going to hit on. I think Matt Patricia has been brought in for multiple looks and moving Nolan Smith and moving Hassan Reddick around. I think it is a huge upgrade by having Matt Patricia as your D coordinator. Or, here, let's be Let's be politically correct. Your senior assistant, whatever that means. Please hit the like button. Thank you, guys. KC, one to handle the 43 and the other to handle the 34. Then you really don't have a D coordinator. You have two of them. Okay. Can we stop the run? Jeff, we're going to get to that here in a minute. Hey, Peter, hiring Matt Patricia as a head coach? No, thank you. Offensive assistant? Clearly no thank you. Hiring as a D senior coach? Bring him on. I'd love to hear his thoughts. I'd love to hear the thoughts on what you see with our personnel and how you would use them. I think this is a great hire. And now that I found out he's not even on the Eagle website, I don't think the Eagles know what to do with him. Is he a coordinator? Senior executive? Senior assistant? What's Matt Patricia's role in this? You notice how vague it is? The Eagles are making it vague on what his role is. They're not even introducing the D coordinator. Most of these fans don't like Patricia because of one man. I don't give a shit if Darius Slay likes him or not. Marshall, I don't give a shit if Slay likes him. Matt Patricia will be here longer than Darius Slay will. Darius Slay's on a one-year deal. I don't care if he likes him. Just play. This is not a kindergarten. This is professional football. If I've got to worry about your pouting and moping and crying, you're in the wrong locker room. Give a shit about shit like that. This is professional football, where the eye in the sky doesn't lie, where you're only as good as your last show, where you're only as good as your last game. You can't hide under your desk in the NFL. So no one gives a shit. If you start crying, bro, I don't care if guys cry. But I do care if you let that affect your performance. Moaning and crying, why would you diminish your abilities? Because someone else is stupid. You wouldn't, would you? Got to rise above that shit. Most people in the world are C students. If you come from that presence and that premise, you'll understand how to get through life better. Most people are C students, dude. The great ones turn C students into B students, then B students into A students. That's the key of having a great organization. And I think the Eagles do that. Slay doesn't suck. And by the way, if he wants to have that attitude, Cobra, if he wants to have that attitude, as long as he's playing lockdown defense in the secondary, I don't care. Manage and coach that. You know, coaching comes more with just X's and O's. You got to kind of be a psychiatrist a little bit. Mike, thank you. You got to be a psychiatrist. Well, Darius Slay, did you see I don't care. Did you see? I don't care. Hey, did you see he gave up that plus 25-yard touchdown pass? Now I give a shit. And if you're going to start crying, I'll replace your ass in a minute. You start bitching and moaning. That's why when AB was moaning and bitching, at least he was catching 120 catches a year. Now he's bitching and moaning. You sit there and you go, I don't want anything to do with that dude. I don't want anything to do with that guy. So you hear people go, hey, well, Matt Patricia and Darius Slay did. Who gives a shit? What's that got to do with winning? And by the way, you don't really believe the Eagles cleared it with Darius Slay that they were hiring Matt Patricia. They probably told him, hey, you guys are going to have to learn how to work together. We're bringing Matt in here. Matt's going to help our defensive coordinator, and we're leaning on him to help us put this formula together and going out with these new faces in this young football team, especially on that defensive side of the ball. So we're all going to work together. I think it was positioned like that, not like this. Hey, do you have a problem with Matt Patricia coming over? We're thinking of hiring him. If you don't want him to hire, he's not coming. You don't really believe that, do you? You don't really believe they go to the locker room and start asking people about whether or not they should hire this guy or that guy. I think they get opinions. Okay? That's right. This is about team. It's not about one man. The Eagles, man, I mean, they don't, from what I'm getting, they don't operate like that. I think they go to players like Jalen, and I think they do ask opinions. I totally do. But I don't think they make their decisions off that. I think they take as much intel as they can. I've said this to you about Howie. Since he came out of the broom closet, I think that dude's a better general manager. Why? Because he listens. Because he listens. Coper goes, Matt should be the D coordinator. I don't know. He's got more experience, more winning. He's seen more. Personally, I think they got this guy. And when New England let that dude go, I happen to agree with you. I think the Eagles would rather have that guy as their coordinator. And maybe roles will change. And that's why he's not listed on that Eagle website. You have to think that's a weird thing. That you haven't introduced Sean Desai as your D coordinator yet. And Matt Patricia's not even listed on the official Eagles website. Surely you think there's something odd to that. Personally, I think the Eagles are going to lean on Patricia more. Why wouldn't you? He's got more experience. How could you not lean on a guy who was around the greatest defensive coordinator in the history of the NFL? Remember something. You can say whatever you want about Bill Belichick. Parcells didn't win shit without him. Every Super Bowl they ever won, he was on the coaching staff. Every Super Bowl that Bill Parcells went to, Belichick was on the coaching staff. I mean, and every time he wasn't, they didn't win. Just remember that. Chuck goes, I want Desai to stand on his own. So you take the lesser experienced guy versus the guy with a ton of experience. Why would you do that in a position where you're this close from winning the Super Bowl? Why would you do that? Maybe in a rebuild? Sure. But do you understand you're knocking on the door again? You know, you're not climbing the hill. You're at the top of the hill. You know what's crazy and how the Eagles have handled this all season? I don't know, Tone, if you agree with me on this. Most teams slide down the cliff after a Super Bowl. The Eagles kind of fell off the summit, but they're right there and they see the summit again. I mean, they slid down a little. They didn't fall off the cliff. I don't believe they're not the Rams. The Rams fell off the cliff. Look at the Buccaneers right now without Brady. You got Jason Light, the general manager of the Bucs, doing this. Hey, man, we really like Baker Mayfield. No, you don't. Hey, Baker Mayfield is really showing. You're like, oh, my God, you're not really going down that lane. After you just had the GOAT in the building. Hey, Baker Mayfield's impressive. This is Jason Light talking, the GM of the Bucs. Bro, you're overcooking it. No one believes that. Not even the guys in your own locker room. That's one thing about Philly, too. They're not overcooking shit. With all the moves that Howie has made, you know the one thing that stands out? Nobody's talking Super Bowl. Nobody's talking even NFC East. They're just talking about retooling, not rebuilding. Pretty cool, man. Pretty damn cool. All right. This is going to be a topic that, to me, I have a little bit of a focus point to because it's the position that I played. Who should start at DT? Who should start as your defensive tackles? Who should be your swing tackle? Who should start week 1? Whoever the opponent is. Who starts as your 2 DTs week 1? Cox and Davis? Fletcher and Carter? Carter, Fletcher? One more. Who should be the starting Philadelphia defensive tackles week 1? Davis and Carter. I agree with Joe. I think Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter should be your starting D tackles. And here's why. I'm going to have and get more out of Fletcher being the swing tackle. He may actually have more statistics than the other 2 fellas. You've invested the 13th pick and the 9th pick in the draft, and you got a $10 million nut on Fletcher Cox. Who better to run that as an assistant coach / player than Fletcher? Fletcher's role is different today than it was 10 years ago. Is Fletcher the better DT of the 2 guys? Probably. But those 2 dudes have to win. Build the chemistry. Build the continuity. Build what you invested in. Fletcher Cox's statistics won't suffer. He'll be stronger by the end of the year. He'll still play a ton. Get those kids motivated. If those 2 guys start, you immediately put pressure on them to excel. I am not in a mood or in a position to sit here and baby feed a defensive tackle like many of you say, hey, let's ease nothing. Ease nothing. You are a professional NFL football player now. Get your fat asses in shape and get your asses in there and let's go to work. You're starting. Don't make me pull you out. Don't make me regret drafting you. It's time. It's time. Just like they told Alex Smith. Alex, we love you. It's over. Play him. Put those 2 kids in there now. Start those kids. Mold those kids. Motivate those guys. You're the starting defensive tackle, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. On the defending NFC champion Eagles, we're counting on you. Let's baby step him into nothing like that. This is the NFL. A baby step in anything and anything. Get him in there. Let's go to work. Well, let's bring Jalen Carter. I don't want to bring Jalen Carter anywhere. I want him starting week 1. I want Jordan Davis starting week 1. Hey, Jordan, you're not on a GI Bill. It's not a 6-year plan. And you're not on scholarship, Jalen. Get your ass in there and play. That's how I'd coach him. I'd go to Fletcher and go, Fletcher's got his money. Fletcher's got his money. He's got his resume. He's got his reputation. He'll forever be one of the greatest Eagles of all time. Nothing will change if he starts 1 year or he mentors the two dudes in front of him. That would, in my opinion, is the Eagle way. He's mentoring. Showing the ropes. You think anybody in that Eagle locker room or anyone around the NFL is going to look lesser on Fletcher Cox if Fletcher's not starting? Fletcher didn't get beat out. The Eagles have an investment. That investment has to pan out. You can't keep putting people in mothballs every year and calling them good drafts. Cam Jurgens, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter have to star this year for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. 3 men. 3 men. Dank goes, you don't think they had tough coaching at Georgia? I don't know, Dank. All I see is undisciplined and 2 fat guys at times. You tell me. When the reputation on the 2 guys is discipline, I don't know. You tell me. Hey, Dank, it's discipline with both guys. One's eating, one's practice habits. You tell me if that's coaching hard. How could you have a reputation on yourself, one for being a fat ass and the other guy for not wanting to practice hard? Don't you think that's dedication? Or do you think that maybe the coaches didn't get in their ass enough? I don't know. The passing of the torch. Nobody's getting rid of Fletcher Cox. I didn't say that. Don't position it that way. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you invested all this equity in these 2 players. And you're not going to. Let me say this to you. If Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis don't start, Houston, you have a problem. If those guys haven't shown that they're better, guys, if you're not better than a 34 or 33-year-old Fletcher Cox, then you got a problem. 2 national championships, that don't mean shit in the NFL. Ask Aaron Donald. Played at Pitt. I don't remember those guys winning anything. I don't remember Fletcher winning shit at Mississippi State either. What's that mean? Got you, Dank. Thank you, brother. Sorry about that. Dank, I'm just saying. I mean, you got discipline issues here. Or maybe not so much discipline. I'll use the word dedication issues. You got dedication. Don't eat. Can you imagine this? 2 things that you don't need any ability for. And I think you could coach. This is coachable shit, though. Jerome had this coached out of him by Buddy. Okay? Jerome had this tough love. Hey, I'm going to give you guys a story. And I've told some of you this. Big Sills, I will say, if Fletcher is any good anymore, get rid of him. He's stealing money. Dude, I think the character on the Jordan or the Jalen Carter, I think you have to have a guy like Fletcher in the building. Okay? I think you have to have a guy in the building. Guys, I want to tell you the story one more time about Buddy and Jerome. And I'm going to tell you the story. It's at my expense. Okay? I had been released by the Buccaneers. And I was flying around. I ended up signing with Dallas in October. But I was brought into Philly. Okay? Early on, Philly, San Francisco, Seattle, Kansas City. Those were the teams that I was on an airplane every single week, 2-3 times. I land in Philly. I work out. Dude, I forget, could the D-line coach have been Rex Ryan or Jeff Fisher? I don't remember. Hey, Tone, look it up for me, will you? Who the hell was the D-line coach in 1988 in Philadelphia. Jeff Fisher, or maybe it was Rex. I don't remember but I know I met with the GM and I met with a whole shitload of people in Philly, and they wanted me. That's it. It was Dale. Dale Howe. That's right. It was Dale. I remember that. Dale loved me. I saw Jerome. You guys are just coming on. It was Tuesday because they bring players every Tuesday in. Thank you, Arthur. So get this. I go upstairs. They have a contract. The Eagles have a contract in front of me here. But I had to meet Buddy. I go downstairs. And some of you have heard this story. So indulge me here. I walk in and they introduce me to Buddy. Buddy turns to me. Aunt Betty, I'm telling them the story. Buddy turns to me and goes, I know who the fuck you are. You think I want another one of you motherfuckers around here? Jerome looks over at me. I look at him and I go, he goes, did you see this fat ass? What he did against the Giants? Did you see what this goddamn guy did? Excuse me. Did you see what this son of a bitch did? That fat ass right there laid down, put his hand up, get this guy out in front of me. I looked over at everybody was stunned. I was on an airplane to Kansas City. I'm like this. Had a contract. But because Jerome played so poorly and was so lazy, Buddy Ryan lit into me. I know who you are. I know what you are. I told you the story. They came down and coached me and Jerome for 2 years. I put my head down. The D-line coach, the GM, everyone was like, Dan, I'm so sorry, man. They couldn't believe he hollered at me like that. And at Jerome's funeral, he apologized. And we had a good relationship after that. He goes, hey, man, I know the last time we saw one another, it was after a Monday night game. The Giants beat us. You know, I said, I know you love Jerome. Dude, you made him into an all-pro. It's all good. He was a tough love dude, man. We had none of that kind of coaching. Butch Davis, love him to death. Love him still to this day. Butch never coaches like that. Nobody ever talked to us like that. Jimmy never spoke to us like that. He drove us like dogs, but it was none of that. Buddy was in your grill. Dude, he's right here screaming at me because Jerome played so shitty on Monday night. I was like this. I look over at him, and as soon as he turned his back, I looked at Jerome Brown, and I went, you mother, are you, hey, he lit into me. You think I want another one of you around here? You mother, you think I want, and I'm going, Jerome called me like later in the week. He goes, man, I had such a bad game. He pulled me. He got pulled by Buddy because Jerome was having such a horrible game. Oh, man. I don't know if I've ever been screamed at like that from a coach. And by the way, he's a pretty intimidating guy. Man, was he on fire. Buddy Ryan was on fire. He was so mad at the team for shitting the way they did against the Giants that Monday night. Dude. Hey, man. Like I said, man, me and him, we kind of like, it was all good. And I tell Rex knows the story too, man. He goes, my dad did. He lit in you for no reason because Jerome sucked. Yeah, man. And then I end up signing with Dallas, like I think the end of October. I signed with the Cowboys and Coach Landry. Man. Wow. Buddy was tough. So when you say, is Jalen Carter, you think he got tough love at Georgia? No, I don't. Because he was the best D tackle there. When you're the best player in the program, you don't get shit on. And you can be lazy. The coaches allow it because when they watch you get into a game and wreck the game like Jerome or Jalen Carter, they tolerate it. They tolerate that stuff. When you get in the NFL, you can't have weeks off. Buddy was so tough, a coach. I told you, man, he'd come down and coach me and Jerome for 2 years, 86 and 87. Not Jerome in 87, but me. He came down for the 86 season in the spring, and then the 87 season in the spring. I was still at UM at the time. And I sat next to him, and he would be telling me, see your head right there? Why would you put your head on the backside? I go, well, because they're trying to stretch play on me. And Buddy would go, that's a great answer. Okay, I get it to you. Poor technique, but you're thinking, so I'm going to be cool with you. Did you tell your linebacker behind you, though, what you were doing? I went, no. F minus. Communicate that with your guy behind so he can play more front side. Okay? He goes, you got to communicate, son, when you're doing shit out there. Every little inch matters. Remember something. You fight for inches to get yards. Always remember that. That's a Buddy Ryan line. You fight for inches to get yards. And I'm going, okay? Communicate. Your thinking's right. But let everyone know what you're thinking. So, Jalen Carter could have this along with Jordan Davis. My 2 D tackles will have Fletcher Cox and Tracy Rocker overlooking these 2 guys. That's how you build a culture. That's how you build a culture right there. Plain and simple. That is how you build a culture. You build a culture by passing the baton. You build a culture like you hear when Jason Kelce goes, I really like this kid, Jalen Carter. The kid's too good not. You know what Jason Kelce's mentality is on Jalen Carter? That's the kind of guy he's too good to pass on. You don't pass on a guy like that just because what? Unfortunate circumstances. Understand, someone lost their life. I get it. Hey, tragic. But if everything is in line and we're good and the player's not in any kind of legal issues, I don't care. Now, you do it again, we have a problem because then we're talking about an idiot making the same mistake over. And then we're talking about a guy who doesn't understand right and wrong. And then we're also talking about a guy who's in a poor decision-making mode. And that I can't have. You see, to me, I don't care if he smoke weed. I care when he smoke weed. Here, and let me quantify what I mean by that. You're smoking weed in the offseason and you haven't failed any drug tests. I don't really care. But if you have a combine coming up and your agent tells you, please don't smoke pot because it's coming up in 2 weeks, and you still smoke pot and you show up to a test and you're guilty, that's a dummy decision. You mean to tell me you can't make a rational decision to understand what the time is, where you are, what it is? You don't understand. That to me is poor decision making. So I don't care if someone smokes pot. I totally don't care. There's more things in the world to be worried about with somebody's character than smoking weed. I do not care. But when you're Randy Gregory and your coaches and your assistant coaches are going, hey, don't show up to the combine stoned or have THC in your system, and you still do, that's why you go in the 3rd round instead of the 1st round. And rightfully so. Your decision-making process is what concerns me. And probably Jalen Carter's, I'm going to have a little issue with that too with him when it comes to his decision-making right now. Are you going to make the proper decisions? Remember something. When you're in college, the majority of your time is monitored. Because listen, watch this. When you're in college, you get up, you go to train table. I'm going to show you what your day's like. When you're in a big time college and in a big time program, you get up for 7:30 breakfast. Then you've got to go over and check in at your football place for your morning workout, which is probably at around 9. Workout, then you go to classes from about 9 o'clock until 1:30. Come back over 1:30, you're watching film early with your coaches. Then from 1:30, you maybe get you go down to the trainer, you're working out a little bit more, maybe 3 o'clock, your practice. You go from 3 to 4:30 or 3 to 5. Then you have dinner at 6. Then you have study hall at 7:30 to 9, and you're in bed. Your entire life is mapped out in front of you. When you're in the pros, you wake up in the morning for your 8 o'clock meeting. You're there until 4:30. You go home. You have all that time. All that time to make poor decisions. Or that time to get lost in your thoughts. All that time to not understand what it is to be a pro. All that time not to worry about your diet. All that time to not be focused. That's where players get lost. I got lost in that. That's where you get lost in this process. Is not staying on a schedule. Because it's easy. You got a lot of money. I saw Carter's deal, $21 million. Bro, you get lost in that. You get lost in that. You got all this time and all this money. I know some of you are out there going, am I supposed to feel sorry for that? No. No, but when you have been coddled since you were 13 years old until the time you were 21, and you're thrown out there like that with free time and money, you're not prepared for life. College football doesn't prepare you for life. That's why some of these guys fall off the edge. They fall off the edge because they're not. College sports does not prepare you for life. College barely prepares you for life. One of the things that I've learned over the years about our educational system, it is so unbelievably useless. When you think about your time from kindergarten until 12th grade, you were taught things you never use in your entire life because that's how they keep you controlled. You're not prepared for life with the stupid classes you take in high school. You're barely prepared in college. What would make you think a college athlete with a lot of money and a lot of time, what do you think his preparation is to deal with everyday things? Paying your bills on time. You know, I had my lights turned off and I had $400,000 in the bank. How's that possible? How's that possible? Got 400 grand in the bank and my lights got turned off. Because I'm not you. And again, it's not feel sorry for you. It's being unprepared for life. It's just Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith and all that. Nolan Smith sounds like a hell of a guy. And I love the leadership in him. Grabbing the mic, taking over. That Nolan Smith takes over a room, doesn't he? It impressed me. He impresses me. I want to play him. Hey, Tone, do you feel the same way? I want to play him. You know what? He commands a room. He gets in that room. He commands it. I want to play him. There's something Seth Joyner about him, that Nolan Smith kid. You know, Barrett's right about him. Something about that guy. Just listening to him talk. I want to play him. I think I can get in his ass too a little bit. Motivate the other guys. I think that guy's a future leader of the Eagles. I watched him talking at the press conference. I watched him commanding the room. I was like, man, damn. Yeah, he's a grown-up. You felt it immediately, like Tone's saying here. He protects his guys. I think not only does he protect his guys, yeah, because they were starting to talk some stuff to Jalen, and he took over. He projects. I want to play that. I want to play him. There's guys that you get on your team you want to play. Because why? What's the most important thing? What's the most important thing you could possibly have in your life when you're at work, your family, anything, business? Tell me, what's the most important thing that you can have? It's trust and loyalty. If I trust you and you're loyal to what I'm going to tell you, I'll get you there. I'll get you there. And that kid, Nolan Smith, makes me feel that. I feel that when I'm around him. He projects that. Yeah, man. All the physical attributes he has is one thing. He exudes it, carries himself. I started watching some film on him some more. And I was like this, man. Yeah, that guy makes me want to play him. I want to play that guy. Reliable leadership. That's a great line, Tone. Reliable leadership. I'll tell you this about JAKIB. I may be critical of JAKIB in playing, but I think JAKIB D probably has those same characteristics, but it's hard to lead from the bench. You feel me? It's hard to lead from the bench. Holy shit, I'm past the post. I got to take a time out. I want to look at all the divisions in the NFL as well. I want to do that. I got a top 10 list. We're going to switch gears in hour number 3, 5:30 Eastern time. We're going to talk to one of the greatest players in the history of the NBA, former Finals MVP and Hall of Famer Rick Barry himself. Will get his thoughts on Joel Embiid. That'll be at 5:30 Eastern. Please hit the like button.